Welcome back. Alex Caputo-Pearl is the president of the United Teachers of Los Angeles. Over 30,000 teachers at LAUSD. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So we had the superintendent on. You have a strike authorization vote, which starts this Thursday. It lasts for a week. Why?
We've been in bargaining for 17 months, over 140 hours, and we've not been able to make progress on core issues like reducing class size, like reducing the amount of standardized testing so we increase instructional time. There's a crazy amount of testing. Salaries that actually help us attract and retain teachers rather than, be caught up in a teacher shortage. Basic charter accountability so that we regulate the growth of charters. There's been a 287% growth in charter schools over the last 10 years that siphons $600 million a year out of the district. Common sense issues like this, also staffing, having enough counselors, librarians, nurses, et cetera, as well as expanding the curriculum to more music and the arts. These are basic issues on the table. We've not been able to make progress in the last 17 months, and that's why we're doing the strike authorization vote.
So this is more than about pay. There's a quote here I wanted to read back to you. If we don't change the direction of the district and the state, we won't have a public education system in 5 years. You really believe that?
Well, if we sit in a state, the state of California, that is 43 out of 50 among the states in per pupil funding. We're the 5th largest economy in the world in 43 out of 50. When you combine that with having very permissive charter school laws that drains that $600 million out of the district, then you are in a place where we're not going to have public neighborhood schools, a civic institution of public education, if we don't do something about that.
The superintendent says, listen, we've got a surplus right now, about $700 million, but because of obligations on pension payments and health care, and the health care benefits for your members are very good, we're going to run out of that money the next 2 years. We will be required to reduce the faculty and staff of these schools. We'll have to make cuts. We just don't have the money for everything. Do you agree with the numbers that they give you on where the district is financially?
We don't agree on those numbers. And first of all, the first thing the superintendent has to do, and this is I get it, he doesn't have any experience in schools or public education, but the first thing he's got to do is schedule mediation with us. Because we're at a legal impasse that the state has certified, it's now his legal obligation to schedule mediation. He has said he can't be in mediation for 56 days. That doesn't pass the giggle test. So that's the first thing he needs to do. On the money, the district has a $1.7 billion reserve. State law requires each district to have 1% of its funding in a reserve. LAUSD currently has 24% of its money in a reserve. $1.7 billion, you can do a lot of work with around the proposals that we have.
We should remind people, though, that when you say the money is sucked out of public education when a charter school opens up, that charter school is also public, and the money follows the student. So it's per pupil education. So if the student moves from one school to another, that money follows them. To wit, you have a demand for charter schools, or else they wouldn't be there. You have a demand for magnet schools, or else they wouldn't be there. So are you not in competition with the parents of the school district as much as the district itself, because they're the ones demanding these changes?
Well, look, we're not anti-charter at all. We actually represent charter educators at a number of charter schools across the city. And we actually believe very strongly in the original intent of charters, which is to serve students that aren't served by the broader system and then feed back lessons into the system. But what's happened is billionaires and folks who want to privatize the system have used charter schools as a vehicle to massively expand and undermine the public district. And that's what we can't afford to have, and it's why we have that proposal that we're talking about. So what our charter demand is very simple. Just be accountable. Serve all students. Don't cherry pick students. Be transparent with money. Ref Rodriguez resigned from the board in disgrace because of lack of transparency in charters and how public money is being used. So this is not an anti-charter proposal. It's for basic transparency, accountability, and equity in serving students.
There have been strike efforts, walkouts in other states, Arizona, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Kentucky. This has become a national issue. Do you see this as the time to act, that you have momentum, and this is the time to get not just a pay raise, but also these other staff positions filled, such as nurses, librarians, counselors, and also take control over testing?
So I've been a teacher for 22 years. I taught in South LA for 22 years. So all of these proposals that we have are very close to my heart and the hearts of our members. There's a very ambitious plan right now to undermine public education and big school districts and neighborhood schools. They're being very clear about it, about wanting to break these down. Detroit and New Orleans don't really have public school systems anymore. They have patchwork quilt of some charters, some other schools, et cetera. We can't have that. We need a civic institution of public education. That's why our proposals are so ambitious. The effort to put millions and millions of dollars to undermine public education is ambitious, and we need to be ambitious about let's reinvest in our classrooms, in teachers so that we can have them in front of the classroom, in class size reduction, in ethnic studies, music, the arts, counselors, et cetera. That's why we're so ambitious. There were these strikes around the country, and frankly, it's because teachers all over the place are waking up. Most of those strikes in West Virginia, Oklahoma, were in states where they were in the 40s out of 50, like we are, among the states in per pupil funding. So we are where we are because of 17 months of negotiations around common sense issues and wanting to save the public school district. We're not where we are because of West Virginia and Oklahoma, but there is a national waking up of teachers, for sure.
Last question, what are the odds of a strike?
Well, our members are very serious about these demands. We've got a strike authorization vote coming up next week. We want an agreement. And we've been pursuing an agreement for 17 months. We've got a strike authorization vote next week. Austin Buettner, instead of saying that he needs 56 days to come to mediation, should agree to a mediation date next week. That's what we need.
The superintendent says he'll talk to you one-on-one on this program. You game for that?
Well, there's a legal process of mediation where there's transparency, accountability, et cetera, and it's what is legally required. So we're always game for talking, but he's got to agree to mediation and actually do the legal process.
Alex Caputo-Pearl, the president of UTLA, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Up next, there are lines around the block and waits of up to 6 hours at the Department of Motor Vehicles up and down the state. Who's weighing in on that issue? Guess who? The two major candidates for governor of California. We hear from Gavin Newsom and John Cox when we return.